So welcome back. And in the last lesson, we did not finish, and I just wanted to make it a two video because the time was more than 20 minutes, and I know how hard it is to sit for long hours trying to learn. So yes, so this in this video we're going to be talking about the horizontal navigation bar. We talked about the vertical navigation bar in the last lesson. So we are going to now talk about the horizontal one. So I'm just going to create an index.html. And I know I don't usually do this for you guys to see, but it's just that. And I'm gonna just show it on the browser so I can watch it real time when I refresh. Good. So let us create one. So there are two ways to create horizontal navigation bars. And we can use the inline, right? Instead of the block, and then floating list items. So let's do the inline list items. So let's just go ahead and just start to code. So I'm going to have the same HTML that I had, and maybe I should copy it. So I copied it, and these are the list items, and I should not have copied the class. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Good. Good. So I have this. If I refresh this, you have it there. Right. So the first thing that we are going to do is to make it horizontal, right? So we're going to remove the style and then we're going to make it horizontal, right? So I'm going to do the UL style first. We need a style block. And in here, I'm going to use UL, which is the entire list. And I'm going to say list style type and say none. So we don't want any. Okay, so that is it. And I'm going to remove our margins and padding. So we are removing the default look of a list. I'm going to remove the padding. I'm going to set it to 0. And so when I refresh this, you can see that we have removed all of that. The other thing that we have to do is, by default, a list item is set. So I'm going to set this to inline. So I'm going to say list item. And then by default, you can see that it takes up the entire line space. So it's a block element, right? So if you can't remember that, go back to the lesson about inline and block and just review it. So I'm going to set the display type. I'm going to set it to inline. Okay, so now here we go. Voila. So that's what we get from these changes. So another way we can do it is use the float. So let's try and do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment this out and then we can choose which one we want to keep, right? So I'm just going to say float and say left so that they float next to each other. So I just wanted us to see the default first. And so when I uncomment this out, right, I'm saying that I want the elements to float left of each other. So when this element comes, I want this one, instead of breaking to the new line, which is the default, I just want it to float left of it. So when I refresh it, you can see that they all went to the same line. So that's the first thing that we want to do. And then I'm going to use the overflow so the elements don't overflow. I'll say hidden. Okay, so that's good. So I just don't want the elements to overflow. And then I'm going to create, uh, we're going to have the styling for the anchors. I'm going to make it display. I'm going to set it to block so that we can set some width and height and all that, right? So now if I refresh this, these are all blocks. So now I can add padding, 8 pixels, And let's add a background color. What color? What color will be good? Now let's add D. Good. So when I refresh this now, we see that it's looking better. You can see here that the background color is not full, right? Just because we added it to the anchor elements, right? So if you wanted it to be full, because that's what the horizontal navigation bars are, they always take up this place. So what we can do is we can instead add it to this, right? So I'm gonna add a background color, the same one, and then we don't need this no more. Okay. So I'm just gonna refresh this and you can see that it took up the entire space, which is what we want. So now we're gonna just add some more styling to this. And we already talked about most of these things in the previous lesson. So I'm just gonna uh, just create simple examples that we can look at. Good. So maybe I want to change this color to 33, which makes it look like black, right? And then you can see that it has a blue, but we would want it to have a different color. So I want this color, which is the color for your anchors, to be white, right? So I'm gonna set this to white. So this white and black contrast always looks better, always looks nice. Okay, and then the next thing that I want us to do is to style our anchors, right? So we have the color set to white. We want to align our text in the middle, so we do the text align, and I want to center it. So when I refresh this, it's centered. Good. And then we're going to add some padding to this, because why not? So I'm going to padding this. I'm going to pad this. I'm going to add 13 pixel, 16 pixel. Okay, so now when I refresh this, look at that. And so I'm going to just say text decoration, set it to none. Okay, because I will want to remove the underlines from this, right? So if I refresh this, no more underlines. Okay, and we are left with maybe the hover, right? So let's create a hover, LIA hover. I'm going to say I want the background color to be 111. Okay, refresh. So now when I go over it, I have it being darker, right? So this is an example that we can use. Again, we want to be able to set the active class so that we would know what links have been clicked, our current click link. Okay, so now I'm going to create this active, and we did that in the previous lesson, but yes, let's do it again. So we have a class called active, and so we're going to say dot active should have a background color of 04A6D, right, which is green, right? So now active green, right? Active green. Good. And how do we prevent the hover from affecting it? We can say what? We can add another pseudo class to this, which is the nuts. And then we pass in the class we don't want this to affect like that. Okay. So now when I refresh this and I hover over it, the rest, but this doesn't change. Good. So to align some of the, all these are skewed to the left. If you wanted to skew maybe the about us to the right, right, we can do that, right? Let's do it. Right, so we are gonna add, so this last styling right here, I'm gonna add a style to this list element, and I'm gonna say instead of floating left, you are gonna float right. And if you watched it, the precedence is the inline styling, it's always the last to execute, so that takes preference. So only you go to the right. So when I refresh this, you can see about us went to the right. And I can make this class the active class, right? And if I just refresh this, you can see both will be green, but you always want to have one active class at a time. So when we come to JavaScript and all that, you will know how we can make this happen. Okay, so this is what you have. Just to make this look better, we can also add some dividers here just to make it look better. But let's see how we can do that. We can add a border, but only the right to the right side, all right? And say it should be 1 pixel, solid, BP. And then if I refresh this, you have the border. So it looks a little better. Then what else we want to do is to make the border fixed, right? And again, there's this space around this that we don't need. There's this margin here. So I'm just gonna move it. So I'm gonna say for the body margin, I'm gonna set this to 0. So when I refresh this, no margins. Good. And then I want to make this fixed to the top so that it doesn't move. The position is always fixed. So I'm gonna say position fixed. Okay, so refresh and it's fixed. But then you see that it moved. So, and what caused it is because we did not set a width. So I'm gonna set a width to 100%. So refresh again and it's back. Good. Well, so thanks guys for watching. I think this looks right about it. It looks good. You can do your own styles and designs and customizations and stuff. But this is just the basics of how to do a navigation bar, both horizontal and vertical. So thank you. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.